643.
Well, the Baylor staff and Jason from the Dallas and Fort Worth area called up about how thrilled he is. And a lot of you, I had that poll up, a couple of days ago, 82% or 88% of you said that the surge has given you even more lift when it comes to the staff and Dave Aranda, et cetera. Well, someone who's right there in the middle of it, right smack in the middle of it, Grayson Grundhoefer, Brian Etheridge a part of it as well. Grayson, our recruiting coordinator and analyst, joins us on SicEm365 Radio. All right, so a huge weekend. They got a nice surge last week and into early part of this week, Grayson. Do they expect that again this weekend?
I don't know if they do, but I do.
Okay.
And I believe they do as well. I think that right now you're seeing kind of everything that they built throughout the spring. The fact of the matter is they weren't able to get guys on campus. They just had to build these relationships. And, man, did they do a good job of it. And I think we saw it last weekend, their ability to connect with these recruits. And then once they got them on campus, it was one of those things where it was more solidifying Baylor than it was having to convince kids of Baylor, if that makes sense.
Yep.
They built such a good base that, you have guys like Trey Emery, who his first day on campus on Friday showed up and was like, oh, I'm shutting it down immediately. Barely even did anything on campus and knew that it was the place for him. Obviously saw it with Jordan Avers, and then, of course, the huge out-of-state one with Maye. That was a huge one for them to land after the weekend as well. So they're on great trajectory right now, and yes, I do expect that to continue this week. And I wrote an article this morning, but I truly think there are a bunch of guys on this visit who will probably end up being Bears before too long.
Grayson, how much does it help that, take coronavirus out of it. Last year, when you hired Larry Fedora on offense, he had been an analyst for a year, and those guys don't go, or they're not allowed to, go recruit. They're analysts, and that's what they do. Eric Mateos and Jeff Grimes already had, at least with this class and these couple classes, roots in the ground. So when they came here, all they had to do was call and say, hey, I'm not at BYU anymore.
Yeah, just being honest, they would have had zero shot at getting George Maye if, Jeff Grimes and Eric Mateos weren't at Baylor. So, that's a part of it. I also think you're right. They've built they've dug their roots in the ground. They recruit that Utah area really well, the West Coast a little bit, just based on their connections that they had prior to Baylor. But I think the biggest part of it really that they're selling offensively is what they did at BYU a year ago. And it was really successful, and a lot of recruits are loving that. You're seeing 3 tight end commits in this class because Jeff Grimes is the tight ends coach and the offense coordinator, and that's very appealing to these recruits. And as far as Eric Mateos goes, guys, who would have thought that we would be sitting here and Baylor would have 5 commits on the offensive line already? I didn't think that. They've already got 5 of them. And it looks like they're probably going to take at least 2 more. They might take 7 offensive linemen in this class, which is, I think, very telling to what they need on the roster, but also very telling to how much these recruits believe in Eric Mateos, that these guys are fine with being in a class with so many offensive linemen in it.
Yeah, and Maile was fantastic when we had him on. He's not a real overly talkative guy, but he was really good. And I was told by somebody that with all due respect to all the others, because they're all recruiting well. We know Joey McGuire with Sean Bell. We know Chancey Stuckey and others on staff. I'm just mentioning some of them. But I was told that Mateos is a methodical grinder when it comes to recruiting. Is that kind of what you see paying off?
Oh, he is. He 100% is. Guys, listen, I have to get creative with how I figure out, who the top targets are, and also just kind of who are guys Baylor might be interested in. And I can tell you just from researching, studying, just trying to figure out how these guys are trying to recruit, you can just tell Eric Mateos is going out and recruiting, honestly, anyone that's worth an offer. He's not afraid to go to, like I said, to California, to Utah, to Colorado, to Arizona. Not afraid at all to go recruit wherever he needs to find guys on the offensive line. So, yeah, I think methodical grinder is honestly, I couldn't describe him any better than that. But also, guys, I mean, he has that part of it, but then he also has the great relationship building side of it. And that's key. That is so key on the offensive line. And going out to these camps and getting to see him coach these young prospects, they really enjoy the way he coaches as well. And I think that's going to pay huge dividends down the line. And honestly, guys, I've been so impressed with him. I think at some point he might have a real shot at being an offense coordinator or maybe even a head coach one day if that's something he chooses to do.
Grayson, they have 5 offensive linemen in the class, like you said. Do you expect them to get maybe 1 or 2 more?
Yeah, I do. They're for sure. They are 150% taking 1 more. And I would say it's close to 90% they take 2 more. And I mean, the reason for that is if you look at the guys they have committed, they have quite a few guards and centers, interior offensive linemen. They really need to address the tackle position. And I mean, one of the guys on the official visit this weekend, starting today, is Alvin Ebasele out of Capel, a big 6'6", 310-pound offensive lineman. And the big thing about him is he's really the only true left tackle Baylor has been recruiting in this 2022 cycle. So they really need to find a way to land him. If they do, that would give them 6. And then I could see them potentially taking a best available type and getting to 7 offensive linemen in this class. But yeah, the big one to watch this weekend is Alvin Ebasele. He's been very high on their list for a long time. I would probably say probably up there in the top 10 as far as their overall big board. I think he's been in the top 10 for a long time now.
All right, so I know that it's the premium part of the section, but you guys have Predicting Weekend, the staff, Grayson, Colt, Brian, and you guys are all over this. I just compared. I just had a comment about what Mateos is, what I was told, a methodical grinder. But Grayson, Brian, and Colt, when it comes to recruiting, after especially the year of COVID, are like animals, caged animals, and people have thrown raw meat just outside their cage to let them loose. And you haven't eaten for 3 days. That's kind of where you guys are with your coverage. It's been amazing. And I don't know what the analogy I just said, but it sounded good to me. Now,
well, I'm hungry. I'm hungry, Smokey, now.
Well, you could come in here. We got some stuff from 310, by the way, that sometimes goes to our tailgates. Grayson, if you could predict 1 or 2 names at the end of the weekend or by Monday morning that might pop, who would they be if you could tell me?
Ooh, I'm gonna give you one name from the weekend, and then I'm gonna give you another name that won't happen directly after this weekend, but he has a commitment date set.
Okay.
And I feel good about Baylor's chances. So the first one, and guys, this has been one of the most crazy recruitments I've seen in a long time, but Jalen Peoples out of Cedar Hill. I think this is the weekend that he decides to commit to the Bears. He has been high on Baylor's list for a long time. Joey McGuire's known him forever. I mean, literally forever. They've built such a great relationship. I know Jalen loves Baylor. It just feels like it's going to happen. I know there was a lot of smoke about Kansas for a little bit, Iowa in there, Texas Tech. We visited last weekend, but I really think this is the weekend where Baylor finally lands Jalen Peoples. He's a high 3-star prospect out of Cedar Hill, a cornerback. So I'm going to go with him from the weekend. And then a little bit down the road, literally less than a week down the road, or I guess right on a week, July 2nd, Ennis Sledge, a defensive lineman out of Neville. He's a guy who camped at Baylor the first camp of the year, got the Baylor offer, loves Baylor, has glowing things to say about Baylor, immediately got himself scheduled for an official visit. He's called Baylor his dream school multiple times. A guy who's really blown up on the recruiting trail big time. Took visits to Purdue and Indiana. But I think at the end of the day, I think Baylor is going to land him. He'll solidify them at the nose tackle position going forward. He's about 6'3", 6'4", 310 pounds, and is a perfect fit for Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts' team, and of course with Dennis Johnson. So he's my other one on July 2nd. I'm not going to give any other ones away, but I can tell you, like I said, I feel very good about this weekend. It would not shock me if there's, 2 or 3 again from this weekend, just like last weekend.
All right, so I have to ask you this, and I know that Jalen Peoples has been out there on the radar or whatever, but I get the feeling that some Baylor fans, has that been a hide and seek with him? Has there been a little bit of that going on? Because some fans were like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it. I'm not trying to say he hasn't done things right, but what's been going on with that?
Yeah, so, we're talking, I think he's had 5 different commitment dates set and has changed all of them. So that's been a part of it. Released a top 5 that was kind of a weird top 5. I know Iowa, Baylor, Texas Tech were inside that top 5. It was just kind of a weird group that you didn't really expect. Went on the Kansas visit and all of a sudden got all these crystal balls and a ton of momentum that he was going to go to Kansas. And decided he was going to make a commitment decision. He canceled that one. That was the fifth time he had changed it. And now, of course, he went on the Texas Tech official visit last weekend. I think Tech people feel good about him going there after the weekend. And now Baylor gets this official visit, which I believe will be his last one, at least because the dead period's coming up. So, again, I just have this gut feeling, and I've had this feeling the whole time. I really think he's going to end up being a Bear. I think there's too many, it's just too deep of roots for him not to. And I just think the relationships, where Baylor is, I just really think eventually he's going to end up being a Bear. But it has been a very weird recruitment for sure.
With Jared Kerr picking A&M, how much of a blow is that?
Huge. I don't want to sugarcoat it too much. He was one of probably, I would say, one of the top 3 guys Baylor wanted to land in this class. And it's honestly more than just talent. From a cultural perspective, he was such a good fit for the Bears. Small town kid. His head coach, of course, was a Baylor grad at Lexington. So it just felt like everything was lining up. But I'll say this, A&M has a lot of momentum right now. They're currently the top recruiting school in the state of Texas as far as kids from Texas want to go to A&M right now. They're winning, and they're very, very good. So for Baylor to get an official visit with him last weekend was massive. For him to wait after going on his official visit to A&M, where all signs were pointing to him committing, he decided to wait and go take the Baylor visit. He canceled all of his other visits and only went to A&M and Baylor. And ultimately he made the decision that was right for him. And like we've talked about, it's going to be very tough for Baylor to win head-to-head battles with A&M when you only have 2 wins to your name. And that's just, you're fighting an uphill battle a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, Baylor's been able to overcome that, but eventually you run into a recruit that is just too high profile that, sometimes it's hard to land them. Now, in the future, it's going to be okay. Like, it really is. They're going to be able to land guys like this. Maybe they'll be able to land 1 or 2 in this class. But with Jared Kerr, it just didn't quite work out. And that's okay. They'll move on to their next target. I feel good with the guys they have on campus. Obviously, Jalen Petrie will be gone, but Devin Lemire and Lorando Johnson really proved themselves this spring. So I feel okay about the position. They'll be able to find some guys in the class to come in and maybe play the star position. And I'm expecting 2023 for them to land a big-time stud at the star position, possibly a 4-star type guy after they come off a really good season this year.
All right, Paul. Hey, Grayson, that's why you are with us on Fridays and sometimes other times during the week. You and Craig with the Bearcast on Tuesdays that's filled with everything. Appreciate what you do. I know you guys have been just busted it, no question, in another weekend. Brian, Jack, and Grayson with another official visit weekend. Thanks for your time, Grayson Grundhoefer, on SicEm365 Radio. Sometimes when you go to the premium section, if you're